Yeah, I'm getting that tattoo.
Okay, when's the timetable for this?
When I have how much money that thing is going to cost. I'm getting something of him on my back.
Okay, that's going to be a few years. But I don't know. I don't think you're going to do it.
I'm going to do it.
This is a promise on the podcast.
Yes,
okay?
I'm getting that tattoo.
We will cut this, and this will be played every podcast until you get the tattoo.
Okay.
Okay? We just want to make sure. Okay, you heard it here first, folks. Roy's Boys Podcast. Josh Marlowe will have the Deion Thompson tattoo on his back at some point. Once he gets the money. He's got to get the money first. But once he gets the money, that's the first thing that he's doing. But what my point was, he can't get another tattoo. Well, he can, but Roy prefers that guys do not get extra tattoos when they're on campus with him. You can come in with tattoos. He just said when they're on campus, I prefer them not to get more tattoos. So I don't know. I don't think he's going to be able to get into them. Maybe he does. Maybe he does, though.
We'll move on to something that came out last week that we didn't discuss on the podcast, and we'll go ahead and take some time to look at it now. And that's we have our non-conference schedule for this upcoming season. It got set in stone once they announced Carolina's opponent in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. And this is a very weird non-conference schedule. This can become the norm with Carolina now having to play 2 ACC games before the new year. Whereas they only have 5 games at home during a non-conference schedule. And one of those includes the ACC Big Ten Challenge. So then there's only 4 that were scheduled that they went out and made deals with.
One of them is also associated with the Battle for Atlantis, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so basically it's only 3.
Yep. And that's because you have the Battle for Atlantis. Mm-hmm. You have the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Of course, Carolina is still tied in the CBS Sports Classic, which that's another game that you lose because you're going to be in Vegas. So we'll go and look at the Battle for Atlantis field. Not the deepest of the tournament it's been. Some quality teams though in there. You've got Alabama, Gonzaga, Iowa State, Michigan, Oregon, Seton Hall, and Southern Mississippi. So you've got in that field, you've got Gonzaga, who Carolina will travel to play later in December.
Yep.
So you can potentially play them twice in about a 2-week span, which in college basketball is very odd that you do that in non-conference.
I think
season.
it's twice in 22 days is what Ross Martin from Inside Carolina tweeted out the other day.
You've got Iowa State, and Steve Prohm is just doing a phenomenal job there, getting the talent. Did they make the tournament this past year? Or did they miss it?
They were a 6 seed.
That's right, but they at one point they were in the top, I think, 16 in the country nationally, kind of tiered off late. But they have always seemed to have talent. Michigan.
We remember last year.
If John Beeline was still there,
that's
I'd be a little
issue.
more worried about it. You think about
they
how
still
much
have talent, though.
How much they've lost, and you've got a rookie head coach.
Yeah.
But it's still Michigan, like you said. There's still a lot of talent there. Oregon, who everyone thinks is, they made the Sweet 16 last year. They got hot in March. Everyone thinks that if they put it all together, could factor in the Pac-12 race.
Yep.
So that'll be a fun matchup. Seton Hall.
They're one of those weird teams, man. It's every year when they make the tournament. Like, you just look at them and you're like, dude, this team, they have the ability to do something. Now, did they lose? Did they lose anything from this year?
Their main guy decided to come back. I think his name was Delgado, if I'm remembering the last name correctly. Or that might be wrong.
I think that might have been a couple years ago.
It might be. But their main guy who torched Kentucky in the MSG game last year, he came back. And then Southern Mississippi, don't know why they're in the field. I think they just do that every year. To allow a smaller team to get into the field.
That's the Battle for Atlantis version of
Chaminade in the Maui.
Pretty much.
But we've seen Carolina in these November tournaments struggle.
Right.
You're going to be fielding...
Particularly this one. Remember the last time we were here, we got beat by Butler.
Yeah.
And smashed. That wasn't even close.
You're going to be playing a team that, you're starting at, potentially... 4 new starters, potentially a young rookie point guard, and maybe some transfers where they'll be experienced, but they've never played in this kind of setting. So we'll just go ahead and warn you on this podcast that if Carolina goes 1-2 or 2-1 in those 3 days in the Battle for Atlantis, it's okay. It's more likely expected. If you would have probably had Kobe and Nazeer back, they'd probably be the favorite to win that tournament along with other national things. But so that's that. Always, it's the newer of the tournaments around the holiday. They do a really good job there. It's a really cool setting. I like the way they light the floor and the fans in the background.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that don't like that at all, and I absolutely
I think it's cool.
I think it's phenomenal.
It's not Maui but nothing's Maui. Maui's been around for over 30 years, but they do a really good job there.
Is arguably
normally it's better than Maui.
Yeah, that's usually the toughest field out of all the early tournaments that they do. I mean, unless I'm just missing one or they got a new one coming together or whatever.
No, that's most years. This past Maui was very good because you had like Duke, Gonzaga, and Auburn at the time were all top 10 teams in the country.
Maui's hit and miss.
Yeah.
You'll have the years. I mean, like, no offense to next year's field, and we're not going to say anything because Texas is in that field, so that's a loss. But the field is, at least right now, does not look that good. So, yeah, the battle for Atlantis. See, I like it, though, because, again, we're both of the same mindset pretty much because, I don't know, we've been friends for that long. And the thing is that, we love the Roy Williams style. He wants the challenging game. So this makes sense for that the battle for Atlantis is, a tournament that I think people will get excited for.
Right.
So, I mean, I think it works out well because, especially with a young team, this is going to show them early on, look, there are teams out here that come March are going to be really tough to beat. You see these guys now, they're only going to get better. So are we, but they are too.
Mentioned the ACC Big Ten Challenge. They host Ohio State, who they haven't hosted in this event in over a decade. We, of course, played them off and on in the CBS Sports Classic, but I thought this was a very good matchup. We get away from Michigan for a little bit, or Michigan State. That's kind of been Carolina's two teams that they alternate with. Chris Holtman's doing a phenomenal job there. They're going to have a top 20 team most likely this year. He's really up the talent level in Columbus. So, I'm glad this game's at home, especially for, like I said, you're going to come off. I think that's something that's hurt Carolina the most is you go to Maui, you go to the Battle for Atlantis. Most of those teams get a break, whereas Carolina's come back and remember we won in Maui in 17. They had to go to Indiana.
Yeah.
And then so it's always been really hard for us to kind of get back into the flow of things, and you're playing normally a top 20 opponent. So I'm glad this game's at home. It's the best home game of the non-conference slate. Figures to be the only sellout in the Smith Center. Probably a game that you and I will look into going to.
I agree with I agree with everything there.
To finally get you into the seats to watch the game in the Smith Center. And then some other notables on the non-conference schedule. We go to Vegas again. This is to play UCLA in the CBS Sports Classic. Of course, we played UCLA in Vegas last year as a part of that invitational.
Right.
That's a program in transition with the hiring of Mick Cronin. Really going to be more of a defensive-minded team. But still, UCLA has talent. It won't be easy for Carolina to travel westward again yet and try to win a game. I think the game that we're all going to be looking at is we go to Gonzaga, and that's that's part of the deal they signed after the national championship game. Mm-hmm. We beat them in the Smith Center last year in a really fun game, a high-scoring affair, 104. I think the 90 was the final of that. And now we get to go to arguably one of the most underrated environments in college basketball because they play in a weak conference, but it's not easy to go there and win.
Right.
And that's going to be as big a challenge as anything for Carolina in the non-conference slate.
Yeah, that's the toughest game on the schedule. Immediately, that was the game that everybody circled. You hit the nail on the head. I think the reason that most people don't know about it is because they play on the West Coast. I think that's the biggest thing because that environment is not – it's not easy to go into at all. And this is not just conference opponents. There are teams that have gone on the road there from Power 5 conferences and have gotten destroyed. It's that simple. That place is hard to play. That team is going to be good again. Now, they've got some they got some guys they've got to replace.
Right.
But still, Mark Few, as we know, has done a phenomenal job. He's a guy that's been mentioned many times by a lot of people when they say who do the Tar Heels go after when Roy Williams leaves is a name that they could potentially chase after. He's going to come ready, and that game is about the middle of the conference slate, maybe just a little bit later, correct? Somewhere in that area.
Right, yeah.
Look, by that time, they'll have some of their kinks worked out. It's going to be a phenomenal matchup. And, once again, this is another non-conference slate where if you are one of those fans that thinks this team doesn't go undefeated in the non-conference, we're in trouble. You're in for a tough out-of-conference schedule. Because I'm telling you, there are some opponents. That Gonzaga game is tough. That UCLA game and that Ohio State game, I feel like people are kind of casting it off. Everybody was relieved that we got Ohio State out of the draw in the Big Ten. And when you look at it, it's like, okay, this team is actually pretty good. Chris Holtmann is a hell of a coach. And they've got some guys coming back. UCLA, yeah, Mick Cronin has done some really good things at Cincinnati, especially in the regular season. They're going to be physical, and they want to get the ball inside. We have struggled sometimes with teams like that. This non-conference schedule, and, we talked about this. Our guy, Jake Lawrence, who we love, he does a great job over at, I think he's at the Tar Heel blog.
Yeah.
He does a great job. He said that it was a little underwhelming. We can't agree with you, Jake. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah. Especially, and I think we're all forgetting as we transition into the new era of ACC basketball, you're playing 2 ACC games before January as well. So you open up with Notre Dame. We don't know the other opponent just yet.
So these count towards the ACC the ACC record, correct? I know they actually do. I'm just asking this question so I can remind people that in football we're playing Wake Forest, a conference opponent, and it doesn't count as a conference game. So
and I understand why they're doing it.
Right.
You're promoting the new network. You want to draw more college basketball interest as a whole earlier before, the middle of February. It's still stupid.
I'm not a fan of it.
The only team in the conference that doesn't have to play a conference opponent before January is Duke. Really ticks Tar Heel fans off, and ACC fans.
How did they draw that? Yeah,
exactly.
That's interesting.
So now non-conference is going to be weird because you're going to be trying to work out kinks, but you're also still playing top-tier opponents, and also you're playing 2 conference games.
Mm-hmm.
So, and just some other nuggets that come out of the non-conference schedule. Carolina does go to UNC Wilmington November 8th. That, of course, is where C.B. McGrath is coaching, building his program. And just one of the things, Roy Williams has done this probably as long as he's been a head coach. I know as long as he's been at Carolina, whenever an assistant has gone somewhere, we've gone and played them. Mm-hmm. UAB comes to mind, and we lost that game. We've gone to Stanford. So that'll be a fun, neat little game to help them. You kind of get make some money because it'll probably be the only time they fill their gym. But yeah, it's
whoa, watch it. That team.
Yeah,
made the tournament before.
They're okay. But,
unfortunately, their coach now coaches at NC State. So
they're a program in transition. CB's done a really good job there. It's just
he's gotten them off to a solid start.
It'll be a fun game for those 2 guys to coach against each other, look down the sideline, and it's one of the things that I love about Roy Williams because no other coach in the country would go do something like that, and we're just like, heck yeah, let's go.
Look at where he's gone on the road the last couple of years. He's gone to Wofford. He's gone to Elon.
Right.
He's now going to UNCW. Most schools, they would not even entertain the thought of going on the road. And I'm not just saying this because, they're our rivals. This is just the first one that came to mind. Do you think that Duke would have gone to Stetson last year and played them? No, that's never going to happen. That's just not how it works. So, this is pretty interesting, though, and I like it. It's this game, another one that's a little strange because it's going to be after the Notre Dame game.
Yep.
It's the second game of the year, but it's not, if you lose that game to Notre Dame for some reason, you go back home and play an easier opponent. No, you got to go on the road and play a team in UNCW that could end up challenging for the Colonial Athletic Conference Championship.
Right. So that's the non-conference schedule. Moving on, we'll dive into a little NBA draft preview. It is the day before the NBA draft, and of course, as you all guys know, we have 3 guys we're expecting to get. We know will get selected. We don't know for sure if Cam Johnson slides into the first round or the early second. We know for sure that Kobe White's most likely a top 10 pick, and Nazir Little can sneak his way into the lottery just depending on if a team falls in love with his upside, or even if he doesn't, he'll be at least most likely a top 20 pick. Anthony's got some mocks pulled up. We'll go ahead and dive into the SI.com mock.
Okay.
And we'll just kind of react to what these guys have mocked for our potential candidates.
Well, I mean, it's really pretty easy. So this is the